And then she'll signal you, and the music will come down. And
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the Society for Economic Equality presents Oh Say Can You See, a twice to three times monthly live television broadcast brought to you on GRTV as well as worldwide on the internet, World Wide Web. First and foremost, I just want to remind you all that we are live the first, third, and fifth Wednesday of every month, from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock tonight. So if you're watching this and it's not the first Wednesday, or the third Wednesday, or the fifth Wednesday of a month, you are probably watching a taped rebroadcasting, which also happen every single Tuesday on this very channel from 6 to 7. Welcome to our Spring Science Roundup. I'll be your host, Tyler Jandernoa. On my left is our distinguished panel of miscreants. If you gentlemen want to introduce yourselves.
I'm Mark Zapotowski.
Not the Unabomber. We've got Mark Z here and
Stephen Durst, not the tuna bomber.
not the Tuna Bomber.
yeah, Mark the Noble Blue Hammond.
All right. Before we get into it, anything really exciting in the world of science you guys want us to lead off with off the top of your heads? Anything?
How big can a star be?
How big can a star be?
That Cosmos Special said it could be 1,000,000 times bigger than our sun.
Bigger than our sun.
And when it
That's
blows
pretty
up,
big.
it'll be a hypernova.
Oh,
hypernova.
yeah.
Bigger than a supernova.
Yeah. How much bigger?
Apparently a lot.
Well,
Apparently a lot bigger.
supernovas have to be at least 8 times the size of our sun.
Okay.
And this is 1,000,000 times.
Are the planets orbiting one of these stars any bigger than average? Or don't they know?
Well, the one they had on the show actually has another star, a smaller star, that's sucking all the juices out of this super giant star, and it travels around the outside of it.
A vampire star?
A vampire star.
Are you sure it's not Galactus?
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
Well, that actually leads us quite kind of nicely into our first topic tonight. I want to start with a quote I've got with me here. The latest edition of Smithsonian. So you got Patrick Stewart looking pretty good. Still relevant after all these years on the front of it. And they've got an article in here kind of detailing Sarah Seeger, who is an MIT scientist. And I just wanted to start with a quote from her. She says, "Hundreds or thousands of years from now, when people look back at our generation, they'll remember us for being the first people who found the Earth-like world." She thinks that's going to be our great contribution to humanity and society. That being said, she has dedicated the rest, what she terms the second half of her life, she just turned 40, to finding that planet, and they think that they might have just. Has anybody heard of Kepler 186f?
A very large, rocky and watery planet in a zone that would be similar to, would be in the so-called Goldilocks zone, considering the size of its star and distance from its star.
The Goldilocks zone being not too warm, not too cold, for those of us
And then people say
familiar.
it could have complex life. They have to say that now rather than just talk about life itself, because we know on Earth life exists in some pretty awful places.
Extremophiles, yes, they found them at on the volcanic vents at the bottom of the Marianas Trench and other such places. But it is hard, I guess, to imagine a civilization thriving under such extreme conditions.
So far, but they're all those Star Trek things. Right?
So it depends on how you
Right.
define life. How would you define successfully finding life, Blue?
Me?
Yeah.
Successfully finding life?
Yeah. Well, when would you feel that it's okay for society or humanity to pat ourselves on the back? You think we actually have to shake hands with another civilization, or can we find some 10-legged microscopic thing that lives off of
Well, I'll tell you the truth,
sulfur
and
or
I don't
something?
think people are going to believe me about this, but I think what we're going to discover is that a lot of the life that we're looking for is already on the Earth, but it's operating outside of our sensory range. And we don't have the machinery or the senses, human senses, to pick it up at the moment. But eventually we will. I don't know if you've ever seen a TV series called Babylon 5, but at the beginning of that series, they come across these UFO-like ships that they'd never seen before, and then they discover that there was this ancient race of shadow creatures. They look like ants, giant ants, that were there all the time, but they were operating so fast that the humans couldn't detect them.
Well, we're operating. We've only got so many cones in our eyes, so our visible light spectrum isn't the same visible light spectrum for everything. We've all heard of that famous shrimp that's got like however many times more cones as we do and can see all these different kinds of things.
Right.
So maybe we need to get some of these shrimp to look out in space for us.
Yeah.
Do we have? Could the control room please pull up that slideshow for us and give us some nice? We have just a little bit of art from NASA's, like different NASA artists and other people, trying to depict what another Earth-like planet might look like. If they can get that up. There we go.
I can't see that.
It's Smithsonian's telling us that this past February, the Kepler Space Telescope scientists announced the discovery of 715 new planets around other stars. The current total stands at 1,693. And in the parentheses here, to put that into perspective for you, in the 4,000 years from the emergence of Mesopotamian astronomy until the 1990s, scientists found a grand total of 3 new planets, and only 2 if you're Grinch and don't count Pluto. So we're definitely in the genesis of, finding. I mean, we're getting pretty close, I guess. I mean, we're finally getting started. If we're not getting really close, we're finally starting to make some headway in the last 20 years.
Our computing power is so great that what that does to the development time for technology, it's hard to imagine what technology is doing in terms of the rate of its actual progress, the rate of science's actual progress in understanding at this point. We're getting to that geometric progression point, or we should be, and if we're not, then technology and actual capabilities are being sequestered.
Yeah.
Well, there's a big rub, isn't it? Because when I was in Hawaii, I met these, what do they call them? The kahunas that have this religion. It's based on the Menehune, which are the small people that inhabited the Hawaiian Islands before the Samoan type people came. And what they found and saw, and what I discovered, was that they had this relationship between various star systems with these kahunas that were, with these, they call them a heiau. A heiau is a sacred spot where the kahunas would worship these different alien lives, people from other star systems. And they would transform themselves from one of these giant plates to the Pleiadian star systems just by some form of astral projection, I would guess.
According to their own
beliefs. They would actually fly there through these portals that we don't even know about anymore. We haven't discovered them.
Haven't discovered them yet, which they could honestly possibly still be there. We can really rule it out. There's a really kind of creative explanation, again, and to hit this Smithsonian a little harder. This is, skipping further ahead in the article, Seeger and her partner, Sasaloff, they're talking about, they realized that the models applying to hot gas planets in the early universe could be used to study the hot gas in the atmospheres of these overcooked planets, if only someone can get a clear look at them. At the time, the known exoplanets had all been detected indirectly by their gravitational tug on their stars. Picture a black dog at nighttime yanking on an owner's leash. The only way you can tell that the dog is there is by the owner's herky-jerky movements. Detecting starlight streaming through the air of an alien planet, far more difficult. If it were possible, though, it could reveal all the planet's key details, temperature, composition, even local weather. And that's how they've now trained these various telescopes to do now. And they're saying, she's saying it's only a matter of time. I'll skip some of the other stuff, but and end with one more quote from her. She says, what she hopes to do in her lifetime, she hopes she'll get 500 Earths. If we're lucky, maybe 100 of them will show biosignatures. Take a moment and let that sink in for a second. 100 planets in the next 40 years that they've found actual biosignatures on, and that's an MIT. This is really accelerated from when I was growing up. All the science, you brought up if there were aliens in science class, and you're almost laughed out of. I went to religious school, but you're almost laughed out of class. And now you've got that's the accepted, opinion, I guess.
So angels are okay, but aliens are taboo.
Angels were okay, but aliens were taboo. One of these days we'll get around to doing a show where we talk about how they might be the same thing, but. Anyway, not today. Any other thoughts on the planets, you guys? Anybody want to make any bold predictions?
Well, I think that there will be a 12th planet discovered on a highly
solar
elliptical,
system?
like Velikovsky said, and Stitchin, Zachariah Stitchin. I think that we're going to discover it because I think from the computer readouts of the gravitational ellipses of our known planets and around our sun, there seems to be one missing planet here that's could be a brown dwarf. See, might not be reflecting light.
What's a brown
Here
dwarf?
in our system, you're talking about?
In our system.
I've heard a lot of buzz about that
Uh,
on
that-
late night radio. And
That
stuff,
used to be assumed in the 19th century that there was an exploded planet there, and that's what the asteroid belt is. And in up to the early 1900s or the 1890s or whenever it was, astronomers who believed this still called this planet Krypton.
No.
So that's where the
And some call it Narubu too, and some call it Planet X.
Narubu, doesn't that come from the Zachariah Sitchin stuff?
Yep, the 12th planet they call it.
So that would be a Sumerian name for it. Krypton is what astronomers with knowledge of Latin in 1890 would call such.
These brown dwarfs just float through the solar
Is that
system.
but I thought a brown dwarf was the sun.
Yeah,
It is.
It's like
But
a
it's the
smaller
size of a
sun?
planet.
Okay.
It's a collapsed sun that becomes a planet-sized object. And there was a scientist from Scotland that did a whole thesis on the hidden mass in the universe is the brown dwarfs. That they're out there in the billions and billions of these brown dwarfs planets, but we can't see them because they're outside of our radio spectrum. Light waves, they don't reflect light. But we know they're brown dwarfs, no doubt about it.
Why don't they reflect light?
Well, they didn't have enough mass in order to ignite, for one thing, so they don't produce light.
They don't produce light.
Yeah, and for some reason, their dark color makes them non-reflective.
Huh.
Well, are you talking about unignited stars?
Well, I'm not sure. They got red dwarfs, white dwarfs, and brown dwarfs, and some
What's
of them
an
are
unignited
stars.
star?
Well, people
Something
say,
like Jupiter, just a lot of
people
hydrogen.
say that Jupiter or Saturn, Jupiter anyway, with all of that frozen gas,
Okay.
maybe Saturn too. But Jupiter, because of its size, is if it were a bit bigger, its mass itself would cause its interior to heat up to the point where the whole thing would ignite as a star. But it's not big enough. But so they've called it a failed star.
A failed star. What a mean
It's
name.
made of mostly the same stuff that
Cruel
the stars made.
categorization, yeah.
Sort of like Pauly Shore.
I left it out of the show when I was preparing this last minute earlier today. But I guess, very briefly, it only happens every 14 or 15 years. I guess there are towering ice crystals on Saturn's rings that they just were finally able to get a nice picture of. So if you're into so-called space porn, like some of us might be, you can go look that up on your home computers. Saturn's icing egg tower for 700 miles in the air, or something like that.
Oh.
But anyway,
Attached to the rings themselves?
yes, part
In
of
the
part of
rings.
the rings themselves.
In the
yeah, that's-
rings.
Wow. That's
Amazing.
quite amazing.
Isn't that nuts? Yeah, and I guess it's just the way
I think stuff would run in.
you have to look at it. You have to be able to see it. You have to catch Saturn at just the right angle, which is why we can only see it every 15 years. Which again, what this woman was saying that when they keep these telescopes trained is that we could be looking right at these super Earths, or Earth 2, 3, 4 ad infinitum, and not realize it because you have to actually, the way that they're looking at it is catching the light of the star through the planet's atmosphere, and that's how she's figuring out if it's habitable or not based on the refraction of the light. But you have to wait for these planets to swing by, and not every year, so-called year, is one Earth year. So some of them might take 40 years, some of them might, orbit in a few days. But so it's like a game of patience. She sounds really patient, though. But I think we can probably move on to our next topic. Instead of outward, we're going to go inward. Researchers at the Cardiothoracic Surgery Research Program at the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute in the United States have recently tweaked it's a highly scientific term, the DNA of a pig, and then transplanted said pig's heart into a baboon. Now that in and of itself isn't news. It happened more than over a year ago. The news is that the baboon isn't dead yet. The baboon's actually doing just fine, which means they now think that they're going to be able to grow human hearts, not just human hearts, but eliminate shortage of donor organs for hearts, livers, kidneys, intestines, and even insulin-producing cells, which would be a cure for diabetes. You could just steal them from farm animals, essentially.
They have, in the past, decades ago now, they had already put a pig's heart in a human being temporarily to keep them going while they hoped that a real human heart would arrive, and they just dosed the person with massive doses of anti-rejection drugs.
Yeah, they're worried that you would start to catch pig diseases, which I mean, there's this obvious swine flu joke
the
in
blood
there,
of the
but-
animal, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys? Can you picture that?
Absolutely.
Would you go for it if your heart was failing? Would you take pig heart?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I met a guy in Taos, New Mexico that had a bladder from a male ram sheep.
Was he really virile?
Subcutaneously put under his skin so that the hormones from the bladder, or the not the bladder, what is the spleen,
Right.
would bleed out into his blood system, and he would get this tremendous aphrodisiac high.
Really?
Yeah, it's big in Asia.
He would just get it all the time, or could he
Yeah, he was
rub
like
it
he was like the ram. He would just be sexually aroused all the time.
all the time?
Some of these Asian guys are very bizarre with their practices.
I don't know if that would fly in the United States. I don't think they let you do that.
Well, that's where I met him, was in the U.S. So
Oh, really?
I don't know where they had it done.
Yeah.
I presume that billionaires are already cloning themselves for spare parts.
Yeah, maybe, probably.
DeVos, the founder of Amway, that DeVos, the old DeVos.
Also, the
he's
owner
still-
of the
yeah.
Magic I learned today. I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Or Rich DeVos's. I don't know if that's
The Orlando Magic.
Yeah,
Well,
the
yeah,
Orlando
that is
basketball
the owner.
Yeah.
That does have to be the owner.
Yeah, I remember when he was in love with Shaquille O'Neal and kept talking about how gorgeous he looked naked in the...
I'm sure he didn't realize that it sounded so embarrassing, but yeah. But anyway,
Not that there's anything.
in terms of Voss, he had a heart transplant in the early 90s, and like years before this show began in 95 already, by at least a couple of years, and he's, as far as I know, he still has the same heart, and that seems to me to be a heart transplant record. So he really
He's
has
had the
got-
same heart since 95?
I heard it was three
three.
three Chinese
Hearts?
hearts.
Okay, so well,
Oh, he's on his third?
He's on his third.
He's got a whole
Well, that's what
bucket full
they're
of
also
hearts.
worried about here is that the pigs have shorter life cycles, so the hearts aren't actually built to last that long. But I'm thinking if you're needing a heart transplant, if you're desperate enough to take a pig one, you're probably already up in the years anyway. You know, what do you want more than a
20
going every decade?
to
I guess?
25 years ago, people were experimenting with the idea, actually, carrying out some experiments with pigs to see if they could work with pig genetics to actually grow human organs in the pigs. And because pigs are strangely, oddly kind of similar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, to a surprising and shocking degree to human beings.
Well, they test on them all the time for that reason.
Yeah, there are a lot of, you don't know why this is, but anyway, so that was an idea that you would have a pig that would be growing human organs, and then when the human beings need it, well, too bad for the pig,
See you later,
there goes
pig.
the heart into the human. There goes the pancreas into the human, that kind of thing.
The girl who had her face ripped up by the raccoon was recently, they were growing an ear on her. What the guy took some of her cartilage, formed the ear, then implanted it into her arm or into her side or something so that it would grow into an ear shape. Then they're going to remove it and then put it on her head. They're going a long ways with these things.
They are going a really long way. Wow. The when I was reading up on it, the article said, made reference to obvious ethical problems. Sorry for the obvious ethical problems, but I couldn't find. I mean, maybe I'm too far into Team Human, and maybe I just eat too much bacon. But what ethical problem, if you could save I'm asking you guys if you could conjure any, you put your imagination caps
Well,
on.
on the Diane Rehm show this week, they talked about animal rights, and the guys were advocating that, said 100-some years ago, blacks didn't have any rights as humans. And they don't want human rights for animals. What they want is animal rights to live and do their animal thing.
Right.
And that should be protected. Right now, they're just using them like flotsam and jetsam to anytime they need some alternative human parts.
Well, that
use animals.
Yeah, that Diane Rehm show guest who was advocating this was advocating that whale family creatures, that elephants, that all the apes no longer be experimented on or subjected to zoos, exhibits, and that kind of thing because they're sentient. They have intelligence, they have language, and all that kind of thing.
As do pigs. So is that the line then? Do we need to find
I know
something
pigs
genetically
are-
similar that's not
Pigs
as
are
smart?
extremely intelligent, but perhaps they don't cross the line into language or something.
Right.
But if we can do this with pigs, it seems that we should be. I don't know. It seems like it's okay to grow human organs in pigs because you don't want to clone humans to just grow organs for their master copy to keep them going. So, given the choice, I guess use pigs. However, the only people who end up affording this kind of thing.
Yeah, there's that too.
They're the 1/10 of the 1% at
Yeah.
best. So, shouldn't society's resources go toward a more equitable, choice of research dollars than these sort of things to keep a very few alive? Shouldn't we be expanding medicine to more people before we do something like that?
Well, the final dismissal at the end of the article I found was that it's probably going to be a moot point anyway because the rate at which regenerative medicine is progressing, they're not going to need to. We'll be able to grow our own, you'll be able to grow your own, or keep the one you have and it fix itself, or
If they
Dick Cheney just got a
and get
pump.
yourself a new pancreas.
This
whatever.
is artificial hearts.
have they gotten around the problem with cloning having to do with the shortened telomeres?
I don't think
have they?
so.
Well, that's the major problem, is that if you clone something that's already old, it doesn't last long. It only continues to have the normal lifespan that remained to the original copy.
The original copy. So you got to go in when you're finally reach age of maturity, and then get yourself written down, and then
Somehow, yeah, if you
Well,
could do
live
that.
live age 20 22, 25, 30, whatever you wanted,
Somehow
to
go-
age 60, and then
Go
just do
back
that
to
in a
the
loop.
preserved or sufficiently recorded information to
Yeah.
retrieve that.
How frantic would you be if you lost the USB drive with your 25-year-old self on it? You got to go in and make yourself a new body you can't find.
Well, we got more than
original
that.
copy.
The whole thing with the singularity that's coming up in 2030, where artificial intelligence will surpass human intelligence on the planet.
In what measure?
And there's a movie out right now with
Transcendence.
Transcendence.
I heard that didn't do very well at the box office.
Well, the idea is,
I think Johnny Depp's lost his man.
how would you know? How would you know that if you could keep all of your thoughts and all of your memories, how would you know that you wake up one day and you're a female sometime, and you find out that you're really just your thoughts and not your actual body, and that these thoughts can be transferred into different bodies. Ad infinitum, it's a form of immortality. So if you can maintain your personality through all these different life forms.
Well,
Hold that thought while we close I just want to remind our audience that this is a call-in show. We want to hear all of your thoughts on anything we've been talking about so far, or are about to talk about. To call in, all you got to do is the number on the bottom of your screen, 459-4881. Please don't call unless you're certain this is a live broadcast, which it is if you're watching this right now. Well, that's kind of a trap, isn't it? Well, if we have one last thought on the pig heart, if you guys want to roll that from the control room for me, please. And we'll move on to our next topic after that.
Would a pig want Dick
That
Cheney's
honey
heart?
boo-boo needs a heart transplant. They're going to do a surgery and put a pig heart in her, so we're going to the ranch to pick out a hog.
I'm getting a pig heart.
If Honey Boo Boo's going to do pageants with a pig heart, we want to pick a hog that has pizzazz and knows how to work it, girl.
It's all right.
I want that one.
This one here? You want this one?
Yeah, no, wait. That pig over there gave me the evil eye. I want that one. I want that one.
This one? This one not here? You want this one?
I want that one's heart. It looked at me funny.
We've been in the OR about 2 hours already. I just hope when she does her pageants, the judges don't take away points because she's got a pig heart. Honey Boo Boo! Honey Boo Boo!
What?
What you gonna tell them judges if they ask you about your heart?
I'm gonna tell them my heart is sweeter than bacon, child.
Yeah.
Who wants sketty and butter? She's got a pig heart now. She thinks she's a pachyderm. Show 'em your scar.
Pachyderm.
This my scar 'cause I got a pig heart. My scar makes me sassy, child.
Our apologies. I don't know why the darn video didn't work, but at least I think you got the gist of it. Honey Boo Boo gets a pig heart on that recent classic episode of South Park. Okay, moving on. The future is now. That was kind of I've been trying to pick these cutting edge science topics for our spring science roundup here. What do you guys know anything about 3D printing? Everybody's got kind of a...
I know that a person I know who he's told me that he's very interested in it, and he's actually gone to one of these makers spaces. A kind of a tinker spot or whatever. Tinkerers, they get together, and he saw a local 3D printer at one of these spaces.
Cool.
And I had heard a story on NPR about the emerging prominence of these spaces today.
That's awesome.
And they are allowing people with very little money to become significantly involved in startup companies for about, 1/100th of the investment cost that it would cost them otherwise, because they're sharing facilities with other people trying to get access to otherwise expensive technologies. So I find that very interesting and rather hopeful. Other people recently have been saying that they think in many ways the massive corporate capitalist economy is showing cracks where there are people getting around it in ways, like these 3D printers, these maker spaces, and people just doing things for free for other people and kind of bartering, but bartering in a way perhaps smarter than you usually think of it being done.
For those of us a little behind the times with it, I've got an interview from the CEO, or the founder maybe, of MakerBot. This interview is just from just a couple years ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and we can just get everybody our whole audience caught up with that. If Control Room wants to try to play that, hopefully it'll actually work beyond just the audio.
This guy's
The Colbert, the Bray Pettis tab, if you guys want to open that one for us, please.
That's the Colbert interview.
Yeah.
This guy's a serious libertarian, right?
My name's Eric Muchler. I'm a project engineer here at Solid Concepts, Austin, Texas.
That's
It is the location where we hold our federal firearms license. And we've just produced our first
1 second, just the Bray Pettis, not that one. Although we will get to that cut in if we can. Is it still up?
They're
Back
working
there.
on getting it up.
They're working on it.
He wants people to use this printer to make plastic guns, and he totally expects himself to be murdered by someone with one of these guns made by his own thing. That's how serious he is as a libertarian. That's what I heard in the interview with him, and I'm like, that's...
Which one was that? Because I missed.
It was the one on the radio.
Oh, it was one on the radio recently.
Is the
here we go.
co-founder and CEO of MakerBot Industries, whose machines print three-dimensional copies. Great, now after the office
We're having
Christmas party, we'll have
frozen
a
video
stack of
again.
3D butts. Please welcome Bray Pettis.
Controller, if you want to try to just click 30 seconds into the interview, the visual might correct itself. I'm a little tiny.
Thanks for coming on. Okay, sir, you are the CEO and co-founder of MakerBot.
That is correct.
That is a MakerBot?
That is a MakerBot right there. 3D printing, right now.
No, what? By 3D printing, so you make a copy of a three-dimensional object, and you can send that information, like over the wire,
Exactly.
over the telegraph machine, and then somebody gets this on their computer, and they can put that information into a MakerBot and make a copy of something that's half a world away.
Like a 3D fax machine.
Okay, so what are you making in there right now?
Your head.
It's too bad that didn't work. Basically, what it was showing you was a 2.5, 3 foot high machine that was pouring, and it feeds the plastic into the top as this thing moves around, and it basically just makes a 3D copy of whatever you want it to do. And it's really simple, and that one was coming out for home use like 2 or 3 years ago.
Can they 3D print new livers and...
Well, that's
pig
what
hearts
that was
and
Lasers and
I think they have it to work now.
and then scanned my head to get a three-dimensional rendering of my face. And now you're making it real live, right there.
I suppose I could try to reenact
You made a few
what it was.
All
All
right.
right. Well, don't worry about it. Thanks for trying.
Were you
Control
saying that
Room.
in Japan they're making houses with them now?
Yeah, cars, dude.
Well, I have a small list here of what I could find. And now, when that interview came out just 2 or 3 years ago, it was still cutting. I'd never heard of it. I remember seeing it when it was a new episode, and I was blown away. Okay, the future's here. I maybe dimly aware of it from an NPR thing or something, but to actually see it working and happen. But all it was printing was little plastic trinkets out of the same, whatever the material they make Legos out of. And they had a crude Colbert head, and then one with eagle wings and whatever. And now you turn it on today, and it seems like every other article, at least on some of the blogs I follow, is a different 3D printed technology.
Metal. There are metals
Well-
that can be 3D printed.
I'm just going to run down a list here. 3D printed eye prosthetic. It used to take 4 to 8 hours to make a fake prosthetic eye, and they had to be painted by hand or whatever. I have a 3D printer that'll do 150 an hour. reducing the cost for that by 97%, medical necessity or whatever. The EU is spending or investing $4 million to make printers for food for old people, not just their, regular food. And also, NASA's got one that prints pizza in space. They
Wow, just
have
like Star
successfully
Trek.
transplanted a human skull on
Replicator.
another person after printing the skull, and the body hasn't rejected it. They
What?
reconstructed a man's face. They're thinking that the CGI effects in movies might be gone now because they can so cheaply make practical effects again, which is like one of my little silver linings there, because I always like the effects in older movies better. I think they look cooler. They have a toothbrush that you can go to your dentist now, if your dentist is on the cutting edge, and they'll model your teeth, and they come out with a specific 3D printed toothbrush that'll clean your mouth in, it says in 6 seconds. I think you just put it in, and then 1, 2, 3 or something like that. It's specifically molded. And they've got, I mean, I don't know, what else did I write down? The 3D sonograms for the blind. You can have your sonogram of your unborn child printed out so that the blind person can see what their baby looks like. 3D printing of human embryonic stem cells. 3D printing over in Japan or China, I saw that they, I can't remember what it was, I heard it on the radio, but they made a super big 3D printer, and they printed 10 houses, livable houses, in a day. And the last one I wrote down before running out the door was that they're hopeful. They think they can put a 3D printer on the moon, because one of the big deals of big hurdles in colonizing the moon to take it back to space is that they don't know how to get a lot of different materials and tools up there. But they think they can just stick a 3D printer on the moon now and turn the moon dust into the wrench you need to assemble your house, and into anything else you might need.
Glass.
Yeah,
You can make glass out of what's
living
on the
in
moon
glass
with the
houses
printer,
and
sure.
whatnot.
And glass is 3 times stronger than steel in a vacuum. And so that's what you want to make things out of on the moon.
Really?
There's a lot of silicon on the moon.
Is there?
Yeah, there's
I didn't know
Lots.
glass was 3 times
Dirt.
stronger.
in a vacuum it is. It's amazing, but
That's
true.
incredible.
Plus guns and weapons and
Oh, I was
bombs
gonna get
and
to
all
that
that
in
kind of
just a
stuff.
second.
And 0 point, small alternate energy technologies like the 0 point energy systems.
Free
that
energy generators.
We've heard that the Treasury Department goes around and confiscates without arresting people, but
They
because-
confiscate what?
They beat you up.
They confiscate devices that have these gravitator, anti-gravity elements that produce more energy than it takes to turn them on and run them. Because some part of the device on a wheel is always falling to a point just ahead of itself once you turn this thing on. So small communities, isolated communities, could be off the grid with these sorts of things. And if you had a 3D printer, it could facilitate this sort of non-corporate, small-scale but very important manufacturing that could make people much more independent of the corporate structure.
That's incredible.
And
So that's where you see the technology taken.
And finally, the
Yeah,
alternative
I have a friend
energy.
of mine who's interested in it too.
Is it Steven?
Finally, alternative energy is getting good enough that the Koch brothers desperately want it to be taxed. It's a
Oh,
big reason.
alternative energy?
Yeah, well, solar, batteries are to the point.
I thought
where
the
you
Koch
can be-
brothers were always pro-taxes. Just kidding.
No, they're only pro-taxing alternative energy sources that
Oh, they-
people can keep in batteries in their own
Yeah.
homesteads, and they really don't like it when the excess energy you produce on your own homestead gets sold back to the
To the
grid.
grid.
The
So they
massive,
only like taxes when it's their competition, is what you're saying. But
Yeah.
what was that? Sorry to interrupt, Zappy.
if anything, I'm interrupting, but I think it's important to say, if anything, the structure, the massive structure of the corporate system, the kind of economy we have, all this investment and power that's been concentrated in fossil fuels, it's driving us toward a disaster. And these decentralizing technological possibilities are something that could really save us from a kind of
Extinction.
energy extinction, and also the sort of technological retardation that we seem to be in. Because there's so much power concentrated in the energy economy, and in these massive manufacturing facilities, which less and less are even located in the United States, we don't actually see at the consumer level the kind of technology that's possible, because these people have an interest in preventing those things from arising, because they're making profits where they are at right now, and it's less profitable to improve the technologies to the state of the art.
They'd rather burn tar sand
Forever, and keep us in, relatively
till everyone's
in
dead.
a dark age.
Couldn't we use the 3D printer to print more tar sands, though?
I'm not sure you can print an element. I mean, if you want to print a gold bar, you're going to need the gold to print it with.
So
It's not alchemy.
yeah, it was a little tongue in cheek, but so we've all heard. Or you mentioned earlier, Bray Pettis, that you heard him talking about. Famously, the Liberator is what they were calling that plastic gun, of which you could go onto the internet and download for free the file for to put into your 3D printer, and then print yourself a gun that works and fires.
That can't be detected by metal detectors.
Famously, I didn't hear about this when it happened, but I was looking that up. Help me out, the Prime Minister of Israel right now?
Netanyahu.
Oh,
Netanyahu still.
yeah, Netanyahu again.
So a reporter pulled out a gun at a press conference with Netanyahu, and just to say, hey, by the way, what does Israel plan to do about these? And what is that? He said, I've got, he had a plastic gun with him, and he was in firing range. He could have, if he had been anybody but an honest reporter, or if he had more murderous intentions, things could have gone really afoul.
How did
for the
Netanyahu take it?
Yeah. What?
How did Netanyahu take it?
I think he dodged the question like any decent politician would. The guy didn't get in any trouble for it or anything. I don't know if he had a bullet with him or not, but that wasn't really the point. So I guess there's been a law banning 3D printed guns since 1988, which I was surprised to learn. But that just expired last December.
Oh, the technology's been around
I guess
that long,
for a while, yeah.
or was on the horizon. Oh.
So the Supreme Court is, arguing whether or not, I don't know if the First Amendment or the Second Amendment would protect, probably a little bit of both. If it is a right, if you do have a right to a 3D printed gun, it's probably split between those first two amendments. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you have a right to a
Plastic armament?
plastic armament? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you can't own poison and anthrax and all that. And maybe
you
they can
can't own a
print
nuke.
that up. What happens if they can print up chlorine bombs and things?
You can't own a tank.
Can't own a
You
tank.
can't own an anti-tank gun. You can't.
But can
have
you
an
own a
artillery
3D
piece.
printed tank?
Yeah, what about a 3D printed
Assumably
tank?
not.
Assumedly not.
I mean, there are
Yeah.
laws that are out there, and it's probably a good thing.
Well, I'm sure there were laws
can't have
against all
tanks.
these kind of shootings, but that didn't seem to stop people. It's kind of after the
there's-
fact.
Do we want to roll that that last roll-in if you guys still have it? The YouTube one, I think it was under world's first 3D printed gun. It's not working right now. That's all right. All it was a quick 2-minute video demonstrating they now have the world's first 3D printed metal gun. So I guess we're kind of right back to where we started. Would that be unconstitutional? Since essentially it's the same thing as a regular gun. It's not undetectable. It's not a new technology. It's just a new way of buying one.
Well-regulated militia?
Is it a regulated militia?
I
I'm
would
not
really
sure.
be surprised if that were
It
illegal.
stood up. If it was illegal?
I mean, you can, in your shop, you can bang away and melt metals and pour things, metal into molds, and you can make your own gun if you want to. The only problem the government had with it was that it was plastic, and they wouldn't be able to tell that you were getting on a plane with it, essentially, or coming into a courthouse with it.
Is it not? If you
Or
have a right,
whatever.
if you still have a right to bear arms, if you have a right to have a weapon on you, Wouldn't it be the government's job then I mean, people are trying to take them in, they have metal detectors. Shouldn't they just come up with a plastic gun detector? They have those things that kind of make you look naked when you walk through the airport now. Well, wouldn't it, or is it, I don't know.
We
Is
may,
that getting
we may
mass
be
enforcement?
heading into a space where, you know, they're going to just check everything all the time. So that's not necessarily a good thing, but they could do it. I mean, they could find ways to detect your plastic.
Maybe they
gun,
could
but they would have to bring in new
Print up
machinery.
exploding underwear.
That's the only way to make it non-prejudicial is just stop and frisk everybody all the time.
Everybody all the time.
What if they made everybody
Starting
fly
with you,
naked?
Stephen.
What's that?
Or, you know, what if they got to the point where they could print up these exploding shirts and pants and things?
Right.
And then they forced everybody to fly naked. I think that would work.
Yeah, fewer people would be flying.
I think it'd be fun.
I would not be one
That
of
would
those
add to
fewer
some
people.
people's fear of flying.
Okay,
I mean,
well,
talking about flying, what happened with that Malaysian flight that nobody seems to know?
once again, this is a call-in show. Our number is 459-4881.
If you know where that Malaysian flight is, call in and
If you
tell
know
us.
where the Malaysian plane is, if you have a thought on a plastic gun or a metal gun, if you want to talk about the time you 3D printed a second Earth and blasted it into space, that's fine. Give us a call, 459-4881. We'd love to have you.
I think it's going to go
Excellent
far
plane.
beyond 3D printing. That we're going to get to the point where we can actually generate life forms. With,
Actually, they're talking about bringing back
holographic
species such as
computers.
the Neanderthals. There's some reanimate extinct species from bits of DNA. They
Yeah,
can
bits of
scrape
DNA
out
that they
of
can
the
knit
bloody
together and
bones.
make all new life forms.
So the Neanderthals
Like in
are going to
Jurassic
take our
Park.
jobs.
In terms of life forms, it's strange to note that
They took our jobs.
more than 10 years ago, people in college, even kids in high school, were at the point where they were taking the shells of organisms that were no longer alive. You know, the exoskeleton of a one-celled creature. As long as they had that, they could take the actual chemical
My name is Eric
materials.
Muchler.
Oh,
I'm
here
a
we go.
project engineer here at Solid Concepts, Austin, Texas. It is the location where we hold our federal firearms license. And we've just produced our first 1911 pistol via DMLS. The slide, the frame, and many of the internal components were made out of stainless steel 17.4 DMLS product. A couple of the items were made out of Inconel 625, such as the mainspring and the beaver tail and the hammer, and we did SLS on the grips.
When we decided to go ahead and make this gun, we weren't trying to figure out a cheaper, easier, better way to make a gun. That wasn't the point at all. What we were trying to do was dispel the commonly held notion that DMLS parts are not strong enough or accurate enough for real-world applications.
She's hot. Three, two, one. Three, two, one. Looks like it went over the berm. First 1911. It's all DMLS except for the springs. So we're gonna try 3 rounds, 45 Winchester white box.
See, that one landed on my shoulder and stayed there till my third shot.
No, I was watching the.
Well, when I got this,
Yeah, it's fun, man.
We're going to know. There you have the first 3D printed, I guess everything but the springs metal gun. It just occurred to me that you said it's a great way to produce untraceable weapons, but is it really untraceable? Because a computer. I mean, throughout the process, computers are involved. You're getting unless you're designing it yourself, totally at home on a non-internet related computer. Most of the big worries, you're getting the designs off the internet. The NSA is going to know everybody with the schematics to any one of these guns. It seems like if a crime or anything else were committed, whether or not that the NSA is supposed to be investigating domestic
Oh, it looks
crimes
like
and
they knew
whatnot.
Bin Laden was going to strike in the United States too. They didn't do anything
They
about
didn't do anything
that.
about that. Right.
They could design their own gun.
But
and
if
print it.
I'm saying if the FBI, if the FBI had a list of every person with the schematics to set a gun, it seems like you would have it'd be even easier than
Well, what happens if
than
somebody
tracking
prints it out
and
and
the
hands
current
it to you?
system of tracking guns,
This
where
is-
it's
I
made
mean,
by a
this-
manufacturer or sold to
This is
middleman
known
or whatever.
stuff.
What if
There
he
are-
prints out a whole bunch of copies and then just distributes
Give
them?
them away.
There are books
they're
out
gonna
there.
follow that.
Physical
Somebody I wanna
books.
know. What?
There are physical books with these
Yeah.
schematics in them. I mean,
Yeah,
how are
that's
they
true.
going to be, unless things travel through the internet, they're not going to trace them. Besides that, people could always design their own gun without having to have schematics that they themselves didn't draw up.
Yeah, there's a book called Lumpanics Unlimited.
If you designed your own gun, what would it be called, Stephen?
The Blunderbuss 3000.
Blunderbuss 2000 Blue.
the Killer Club.
If you could 3D print a gun to shoot something other than bullets, Zappy, what would it be?
Flower power.
Flower power.
Peace.
Shoot
Peace
pollen,
gun.
huh?
The free love gun.
Free love.
Yeah, I would.
Happiness is a warm gun, right?
Happiness is a warm gun. Once again, this is a call-in show, 459-4881. We've got just a few minutes left here, and it sounds like we've got Jeff.
Oh, we got Jeff.
on the
All right,
line.
Jeff is back on the
Welcome
line.
aboard, Jeff.
Jeffy.
Jeffy,
He
talk
seems
to
to be
me.
communicating with some sort of beeping
Yes.
language.
Jeff,
He's,
Jeff, are
he's
you a
become a
3D
robot.
printed life form talking to us from the past?
we can't hear you,
there?
Jeff.
We lost
Jeff,
him.
bear with us.
Okay, Jeff.
Hang in there, Jeff.
Jeff, can you say anything?
What was that, a computer? The computer's on.
Yeah, we're
On the radio, they always tell you to turn your radio down. when you
computer
call
just
in.
gave
So
us
if
a
you're turning
raspberry.
your television down.
Perhaps
you're
Jeff
calling
needs
in.
to call back because we don't.
Jeff calls back and we'll get a better connection. We want to know all your thoughts. The final
Could I just?
topic. What's that? Go for
I
it.
was going to talk about. I mean, you guys were talking about artificially generated life forms. With the shell of a one-celled organism, kids in high school and in advanced biology class, I have heard on NPR take the chemical components of DNA and are able to put this into these things, and they create, in the right proportion, if you've got it, you artificially generate DNA that actually causes an artificial organism to live. And you can design your own.
Can't Zappy, we got Jeff again. Sorry, not Ken.
All right.
Jeff, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hey, we can hear you just barely.
No.
Shut up, we can hear you.
The resurrection of the dead is at hand.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, you're talking about Mark talking about schematics and stuff. But wasn't there a movie? Because nowadays they have books.
You need to be a lot louder.
Oh, nowadays they have books that you can do stuff and make stuff on, like these guns that Chandler was talking about. Well, what was that movie years ago with what was this? Bruce Willis, The Jackal, with Richard Gere, where he made his own gun. Remember that movie at all?
I never saw The Jackal, although
It was
I'm
Bruce
culturally
Willis.
aware of it.
Yeah, it was Bruce Willis and Richard Gere. Anyways, Bruce Willis was he had some guy design a gun. But my point is, that's been happening years ago and stuff too. And so, but like you said about this plastic stuff, maybe they're just going to have to put something to just search people for everything, you know. So.
Was there a question in there, or was that just a comment at the end? I missed you. You trailed off at the very end.
You
for everything.
sound like you're 100 miles
We're
away.
going to search everybody for everything.
Yeah, most of my phone, so I'll take that off the air because I can barely hear you either. So thanks.
All right, hey, thanks. Yeah. Blue's answer was that.
He said he thinks that in the future they're going to search everybody for everything.
Because of this.
I mean, look at the repressive marijuana laws now, where they search you on the street in New York City. They can strip you down in front of people.
Well, yeah.
And-
My brother showed me this great image of somebody trying to go through airport security. It was a meme, you know, and it was just the TSA agent crouching right here, looking right as the guy's got his pants around his ankles, and he's, and they're just checking his junk, and it just said, keep telling yourself you're free.
Yeah, if you say, lay off my junk, you can get arrested and beaten up. And supposedly someone who, said, hey, don't do this, they took him off into a room, and then they said, well, he hung himself.
Yeah.
America, the freest country in history,
well, what do you
or
think?
the only country in history?
I was just thinking of combining, we're not going to get to the last thing tonight about the pyramids, so I'm sorry, everybody.
I thought we were going to talk about drones. That's what I did all
Well,
my
that was
studying
the
on.
original idea, but the drones topic was subsumed by these other topics.
It was subsumed, yes. I'm sorry. I should have given some warning, Stephen. But, okay, so in the future, you're thinking everybody's going to get patted down. We've got just a few minutes left here. So, and as technology keeps going, 3D printing, and we've got the president is bowing to a robot and playing soccer with it, and line it out. So why can't they build a robot to impersonally pat down all these people? And then beyond that, could you picture, what if your device, which already has, because we're getting closer and closer to technologically advanced humans and that kind of thing, couldn't they just program everybody's device to override, if the minute you became a threat, it would broadcast to everybody else around you? What if your phone knew, I was going to go shoot up a
Minority
building or
Report.
whatever? Kind of like Minority Report.
Yeah.
It's, it's your Google search and
Pre-crime.
everything else. It sees you packing a gun, and it goes, okay, well, this person's got a gun, and their heart rate's up, and whatever, and it starts going to everybody within 250 feet or whatever. Go this direction because this other human might be a threat or whatever.
I'm old enough to remember that during the Cold War, people
like
complained
gaydar.
about the Soviet lifestyle and all of the power of the state to know so much about you, and that people had given up too much for security. And I think that we're certainly moving in the direction of giving up way too much for security.
Yeah.
How many people get blown up? How many people get killed by shooters, really? I think, gun control is a good thing, and, but all of this
You're so much more likely to get murdered by the U.S. government than you are to get murdered by a terrorist. I forget what the actual
all of
stat
this
is,
overall
go look
loss
that up if you really
of
wanna
liberty
know.
is not worth the cost of the security. We need, in order to be free, we need to live with a certain
Risk.
amount of insecurity, or we're going to lose too much.
Right.
I think.
I've been living with all kinds of insecurities for 26 years now. But anyway, I think that's all we've got time for tonight. Thank you to our colleague Jeff and to everybody else for joining us. This has been the Society for Economic Equality presents, Say Can You See presents the Spring Science Roundup. Extrajudicial executions will have to wait for another day. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thanks to the panel.
Extrajudicial execution, spare me over for another year.
Technology is a lot more advanced than
So they had to bring him back so they could kill him later?
That's up to the guy. They had to pull the curtain.